Mischief managed. Welcome back to my Harry Potter series, reviewing all of the Harry Potter films leading up to Fantastic Beasts 3, as well as celebrating the 20th anniversary of the franchise, probably now the 21st anniversary of the franchise. I am filming this in 2021, but it is going live in 2022. We are going to be talking today about the third Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Prisoner of Azkaban focuses on Harry, Ron, and Hermione's third year at Hogwarts, in which there is no Voldemort in this movie. It was a nice break from Voldemort in this movie, but we learn that Sirius Black, a prisoner of Azkaban prison, has escaped, and he was put in Azkaban prison for killing 13 people with a single curse. And now Harry believes that he is in grave danger because he believes Sirius Black wants to kill him. The more that the trio unravel, the more that they learn that Sirius Black is not all who he seems. Prisoner of Azkaban is regarded by many fans and critics of the Harry Potter series as the best of the Harry Potter series. Right as this movie opens, you can tell there's a completely different style and tone to this movie. Chris Columbus is no longer the director. He forfeited that right on this movie. He wanted to spend more time with his family, so Alfonso Cuarón took over. Now, I am going to be completely honest with you guys. This is not me being contrarian. Prisoner of Azkaban is honestly my least favorite Harry Potter film. That's not to say it's a bad movie. I still think it's a solid movie. But go on my Letterboxd. You'll see almost every Harry Potter film a 3.5 or above. Prisoner of Azkaban resides at the bottom, at a 3. There are many problems that I have with Prisoner of Azkaban. And again, I'm not here to be contrarian. I'm not here to be the guy who just wants to be different because everybody else loves the movie. And sure, maybe my opinion will change over time. Maybe I'll grow to love Prisoner of Azkaban. But from the moment I saw it in theaters when I was 10 in 2004, there was just always something that felt slightly off about Prisoner of Azkaban. I've never really been able to pinpoint a main thesis as to why this movie feels off, but there's been many problems with this movie that have boiled up in me inside for years that I just feel like almost every Harry Potter fan or film critic who loves this movie, and that's fine if you love this movie and you think it's the greatest Harry Potter movie, but I think many people just overlook a lot of the problems with this movie. And it's gonna sound like I'm bitching a lot in this review, and I really don't want to come across as that, because again, I do like The Prisoner of Azkaban. I think it is a solid Harry Potter film. It's just not the best for me. First of all, the humor for me in the beginning doesn't really work. I think it's okay during the Aunt Marge scene with the Dursleys and Harry and him blowing up Aunt Marge unknowingly. I think that that's actually played for laughs, but I think they take it a little bit too far with Aunt Marge, and they definitely take it too far with the Night Bus. My God, that shrunken head. God, people think Star Wars set black people back 20 years, and the shrunken head set Jamaicans back like 50 years. My God, is that thing racist. Not only that, but it is really annoying.
Yeah, take it away, Ernie. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Leaky cowder, and hey, if you have the pea soup, make sure you eat it before he eats you.
As I said in my review for the Chamber of Secrets, once Dobby shows up in the Chamber of Secrets, he runs the risk of being the Jar Jar of the Harry Potter series. Luckily, he doesn't. What ends up being the Jar Jar of the Harry Potter series for me is these stupid shrunken heads. Yeah, take it away, Annie. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Huh? Sure, I guess to enrich the world and show us just how great magic is, you do that with better moments in the film. Like Buckbeak slowly grazing his claw in the water as Harry flies Buckbeak later on in the movie. That just opened up a completely different feeling about this world that isn't real, that we all wish was real. It's not shrunken head moments like that, and then they pop up later in the movie when Hermione and Ron go into a pub in Hogsmeade, and they're like, shut the damn door! Ugh, I hate these things. Daniel Radcliffe for me in this movie is very on and off. There are scenes where I think he's really good, But overall, I think his performance as Harry in this movie is really mediocre. Half the time, Harry is yelling, "Expecto Patronum!" Or he has that really terrible scene where he finds out that Sirius Black was his parents' friends and he's actually his godfather. He's like, "I hope he finds me, because when he does, I'm gonna be ready. When he does, I'm gonna kill him."
Harry, what happened?
He was their friend. And he betrayed them. He was their friend! I hope he finds me. Because when he does, I'm gonna be ready. When he does, I'm gonna kill him.
Like, Daniel Radcliffe is smiling at the end of that scene. How did nobody pick up on this? Did he just cease to act at the end of the scene? Did they forget to yell cut? I have no idea what happened, but it lingers on his smile for about 2 seconds too long. He's trying a bit too hard in this movie to give Harry a little bit of teen angst. I mean, that happens more in The Order of the Phoenix, but you can see it coming to a head here, and I don't think he plays it all that well in this movie. Draco is also relegated from the biggest bully to the biggest pansy. Look, I get what the film is saying. Stand up to your bullies, and they're not as tough as you think they actually are, but for somebody who is as vile and vicious and evil and slimy as Draco, just after how he was portrayed in the first two, going from Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets to how he's portrayed in this is just almost like a big slap in the face to the character.
Don't stand there, do something! What? What's up, man boy? Lost your stick. Get out of the way! That's killed me. It's killed me. Who's here? Ah, come to see the show.
You foul, loathsome, evil little cockroach!
Hermione, no. He's not worth it.
And we have to talk about the biggest crime this movie commits, and it deals with this. I'm sorry, but if you do not explain who Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs are... Oh shit, this thing... Damn. I've actually never really opened this thing. This thing, the Marauders map is huge. As I was saying, you cannot just omit who Moony, Wormtail, Padfoot, and Prongs are, especially when you start bringing up these names in the later Harry Potter movies, and audiences who haven't read the book are probably like, wait, why is Ron's rat Peter Pettigrew being called Wormtail? Why is Sirius Black being called Padfoot? Who is Moony? More importantly, who is Prongs? The book tells us that it's James Potter, and that James Potter, Harry's dad, was an animagus. Nowhere in the goddamn movie is this explained. I will never forgive them for omitting that. That is vital information from the book that you are omitting from the movie. And just to add insult to injury, the movie also glosses over the importance of the Shrieking Shack and the importance of the Whomping Willow. Again, vital pieces of information that are related to the backstory of the Marauders and why they are the Marauders. I do not understand how this is just completely omitted. And for people saying like, well, that's just little things we don't need to know. No. These are important story details that relate to this actual story of Harry Potter. We need to know that. It's a grudge I've held against this movie since it was first released, and it's a grudge I will forever hold against this movie until the end of time, until the day that I die. Sure, you could probably look at later films like The Half-Blood Prince and say the same exact thing. Like, oh, they don't explain who the Half-Blood Prince is. But in that movie, do you actually really need to know why Snape is the Half-Blood Prince? Because that never comes back around at the end. Like, Harry not knowing that his dad was an animagus is actually kind of insulting to people who have read the books. I'm just saying. I also feel as if this movie is stylistic for the sake of being stylistic. The movie ends on one of the cheesiest freeze frames in all of cinematic history. Did not need to happen, and to make matters worse, there are a lot of scene transitions. Some of them work, some of them don't, from fade out to black to fade into black. Some of them, like the one with the bird going towards the Whomping Willow, that works. The one during the Quidditch match where the scene fades out to black, works. There are others in the movie that just do not work for me. It was almost as if they were trying too hard to make this movie different from the two Chris Columbus films, adding in freeze frames and fade ins and fade outs were their way of saying this is more mature, when it really is just in your face as to why they're actually doing this, so that they can just differentiate between the three movies now. So I guess all my bitching about The Prisoner of Azkaban is out the window, because the rest of the movie is either good to really good. Those are really my main issues with Prisoner of Azkaban as to why it feels off to me. But once again, John Williams delivers an amazing score. He actually has probably my favorite piece of music other than Hedwig's theme and Leaving Hogwarts. In this movie, it's the scene where Harry and Hermione save Sirius, and Sirius flies off on Buckbeak.
You really are the brightest witch of your age.
That scene is one of my favorite scenes in all of Harry Potter. That theme, that's also used in the teaser trailer for Goblet of Fire, has a sense of freedom and independence to it, and in that moment really defines Sirius's character, since he was an innocent man, and it presents the sense of refound innocence. There's some really great visuals in this movie, a lot of dark saturated color palettes. I think you have to do that when you are presenting a movie that deals with themes of depression. The Dementors, they suck your soul and the happiness comes out of you. As Ron says, "Look, I'll never be cheerful again." The color grading on the Hogwarts Express, that scene is great. That scene immaculately leaps off the pages of the book. It's how I envisioned it. There are certain things when reading these books as to how you envision it. When you imagine it in your head and then you see the live action adaptation and it's just how you envisioned it, and it's crazy. These are the movies that I feel like that happens with the most. I wish the Quidditch scene in this movie was a bit longer, especially since the first two had longer Quidditch scenes. I like the fact that they're playing Quidditch in a torrential downpour and a thunderstorm. Jesus, that's gotta suck. That the Dementors are there. Harry no longer is chasing the snitch. He's trying to get away from the Dementors, and that's where that cheesy fade to black actually works. I want to talk about Michael Gambon as Dumbledore, because this was actually a recast. Richard Harris played Dumbledore in the first two Harry Potter films, and unfortunately Richard Harris had passed away in between Chamber of Secrets and Prisoner of Azkaban. For those that don't know, Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets came out in 2001 and 2002. They skipped a year in 2003. Prisoner of Azkaban came out in June of 2004, so it didn't come out in November of 2004 or November of 2003. It came out, this was the first Harry Potter film to come out in the summer, which didn't hinder its box office performance at all. And sometimes you run the risk of doing that with a big franchise like this when you switch release dates like that. Harry Potter always remained consistent with the November and July release dates. This is the only one I believe that was released in June, so that was strange. But because Richard Harris had passed away at the end of 2002, they had to recast Dumbledore, and they cast Michael Gambon. Dumbledore in this movie seems a lot more stern than Richard Harris's portrayal, and I think that that was needed. Michael Gambon had to make Dumbledore his own thing. He never seems as calm as Richard Harris, nor does he ever seem as loving, but you can tell that the core of the character of Dumbledore is still there, despite his minimal screen time. I mean, it takes a while to get used to Michael Gambon. I don't think Michael Gambon really settles into the role of Dumbledore until about the 5th movie, maybe even Half-Blood Prince. I think you needed to write Dumbledore differently than how you wrote Dumbledore when Richard Harris was playing him, and so to the movie's strength, they ended up doing that And while Dumbledore isn't in the movie all that much, it works with Michael Gammon's performance and his portrayal. Probably my favorite Hogwarts professor ever is in this movie, and that is Professor Lupin, a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher, another one, 3rd year straight for a new Defense Against the Dark Arts teacher. What could possibly go wrong this time? Well, he's a werewolf. Jesus, what is wrong with all these Defense Against the Dark Arts teachers? Again, Dumbledore, worst hiring manager ever. But you learn a lot from Lupin. I feel like if Hogwarts existed in real life and I took Defense Against the Dark Arts from Lupin, I would have gotten a lot out of that class. Taking the boggart from the wardrobe, taking something you fear and turning it into something funny is a great message for kids to allow them to face their fears. I didn't mention this in my Chamber of Secrets review, but yeah, Ron and Hermione are starting to get a little bit closer. He even started to at the end of Chamber of Secrets when Hermione had to run down the Great Hall and hug Ron awkwardly. Love starting to blossom right before our eyes. Teenage romance. As I stated at the beginning of this review, I love how this movie is able to enrich this world further. For instance, Buckbeak grazing his claw against the water, and Harry still being amazed that it's still magical. The housekeeping attendant at the Leaky Cauldron opening the door and being like, I'll come back later, stuff like that. But what I also don't like about Prisoner of Azkaban, this is something I almost forgot to mention, is different locations for everything. Like, why is Hagrid's hut on a hill all of a sudden? The Whomping Willow was never there in the first 2 movies, was never in the location that it is in the first 2 movies. They tried to make Hogwarts look more gothic in this, and coming from the first 2, it seemed a bit strange. I think they filmed at a different place than they did in the first 2, and I think that's why. At least the consistency remains throughout the rest of the films, so I can give it a pass. But still, it is bothersome on rewatch how you just go from the Whomping Willow in one location and Hagrid's hut in one location to Hagrid's hut being at like the bottom of a hill. Weird landscapes for Forbidden Forest. The end of this movie is really fun. We have some great creature action, some really good CGI for 2004 where Sirius and Lupin duke it out as dog and werewolf. Really entertaining sequence. The entire ending actually makes you question what you just watched because this is a time travel movie. This was one of the first time travel movies I had ever seen. This was before I had seen Back to the Future. Seeing Harry and Hermione go back in time, possibly altering events, which, watching it now with the knowledge of what they do, it makes you question what came before. And I think that that's the brilliance of this movie because you hear things going on in the background as you're watching the 3rd act unfold, but then when they go back in time and they're actually the ones doing that stuff, it makes much more sense as to what happens in that 3rd act when they're doing those things. For instance, they saved Buckbeak from death because Buckbeak scraped up Malfoy's elbow because he's a little pansy in this movie. Ugh. Hate that. Speaking of Malfoy, there's also that weird one movie wonder Slytherin kid who's with Malfoy's gang. Never see him ever again, I don't think. I don't know, carry on, I guess. So the 3rd act makes you believe that Buckbeak was actually executed, but when Harry and Hermione go back in time, they save Buckbeak's life. So now it makes you believe that Buckbeak was never executed at all. Hermione howling like a werewolf to save Harry's life. We heard her howl like a werewolf in the present, except we didn't know it was her until she and Harry go back in time. Harry performing the Patronus charm against a legion of Dementors, and he thought it was his father, but it was really him. I love all the brilliance of that and how that translated from book to screen. So yes, Prisoner of Azkaban is a solid Harry Potter film. It has a lot of Harry Potter things that I love. I enjoy watching it, but calling it the best Harry Potter film for me, I really don't see where people come from with that assessment. And I understand, to each their own, everybody has their own opinion, but I think a lot of things go overlooked when critics and fans analyze this movie. A lot of the problems that I've never really actually seen addressed in online forums, essays, reviews for this movie, Everybody thinks this is a perfect Harry Potter film, and yeah, it is a good movie. But those problems that I have with the movie, they just don't sit well with me, which is why Prisoner of Azkaban just feels really off for me. It's gonna sound like I'm going to give this a low grade, and the grade is gonna make it sound like that maybe I'm being a bit too harsh on Prisoner of Azkaban, but I'm being honest with myself. I think that feeling that something is off about this movie is always going to stay there. It's always going to linger. And I think that is due to the fact that there's no explanation as to who the Marauders are. That is vital information that audience members need. So, because of that, it is going to get a lower grade than both Sorcerer's Stone and Chamber of Secrets. And this low grade might surprise you. It's not in the C's. I'll say that. It is not in the C's. But I am going to give Prisoner of Azkaban a B-. A lot to like, but just too many problems that I can't overlook with this film. Again, that's not me being contrarian. That is me being honest after years of viewing this movie. Hundreds, probably thousands of times watching this movie. It's never felt right to me. Those problems probably all boil into what doesn't feel right. All of those problems just make it feel off. They've never improved in rewatches, if you know what I mean. They've always just remained problems. They've never fixed themselves. So guys, coming very soon is my review for Goblet of Fire, and I cannot wait to talk about Goblet of Fire because that, to me, is where the series just gets awesome. So stay tuned pretty soon for my review of Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. You guys are the best. Thank you for watching. I will leave my link to my website in the description below. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.